Namaste. You will never succeed as a professional in India. These words of my interviewer shocked me, but he did not stop. He also went on to say, you should go back to where you came from. You should pack your bags and leave. I have a small confession to make, and I'm sure it will resonate with all of you. As I stand here, I am nervous, and I face that old monster of imposter syndrome. That little voice of an imposter that is telling me, I don't deserve to be here, because someone told me this some years ago. In 2014, I came back to India after spending a decade overseas, handling clients and ventures across multiple countries where I had a lot of fun. My desire to come back to India was driven by my curiosity towards technology and all that it was doing for our people in this country. My choice to come back was also triggered by my ailing mom, who was 73 and suffering from a horrible disease, Parkinson's disease. She was suffering from it for 13 years, and it was robbing her of her life. She needed my support. And so I came back to India, and I felt like Shah Rukh Khan of Swades. Just that I was older, married, and we were expecting our first kid. And at 34, I did what everyone does when faced with a career choice. Maybe engineer. So what did I do? I did an MBA. And so I went to a fantastic B school in India, and I was having great fun, making new friends. I was full of hope because I was doing really well. Till one day, my confidence came crashing down. It was my first campus interview, just like all of you probably, at a major global company. And it was my first interview in 5 years. And my interview started off really well. I was making great eye contact, was giving good answers, till my interviewer decided to act tough with me. And he said, oh, so your last stint was in Dubai? Can you tell us why you won't go back? And I had barely opened my mouth to answer before he cut me and said, Savio, I don't think you will succeed in India. You should pack your bags and leave. We feel that anyone who has spent a decade living outside this country does not understand India, and they leave. And my mind processed his words as, he did not believe that I had the right or the ability to succeed in India. I handled stress reasonably well, but in that moment, I froze and I failed the interview. And so I ran back to my room. I wanted to pack my bags and leave. Wouldn't that be ironical? In despair, I did what all little boys do, probably even 34-year-old men do. I called my mother. And I poured my heart out to my mother, and that was a trigger moment. We had a heart to heart. And I decided to stay back in India, no matter what the outcome. For my mom, for my wife, for my 1-month-old daughter, and for myself. In the last 8 years, I have heard those critical words and felt those judgmental eyes piercing through me many times and in many forms. Yet here I am. And every time I have heard those words, those chiding, harsh words, I have felt like a fraud, like an imposter. Imposter, that syndrome that I share with 70% of the world. That syndrome that is not restricted only to me, but affects famous celebrities like Albert Einstein and Tom Hanks and Sheryl Sandberg and Serena Williams. And the syndrome that affects more of your friends than you can ever think of, and a lot of us sitting in this hall, I'm sure. And then isn't it ironical that as human beings, we love the story of the underdog who wins against their imposter. We love the story of David versus Goliath. How many of you have heard about it? Everyone? We love that story of David, that little shepherd boy who fought for the honor of his tribe and killed a powerful giant Goliath. We love the fact that David never listened to his king, his tribe, and possibly his own imposter fears, and yet took a simple stone and a sling and killed Goliath. That story has traveled through time and centuries. It is the story of a small boy who stands up to a class bully. It is the story of how a small organization takes on giant corporations. It is the story of how small armies have fought against oppressors with their sweat, blood, and tears. And it is the story of how small teams win against larger teams in sport and emerge as champions. It is the story of India's 1983 World Cup win. As human beings, every time we win against our fear and odds, we love this story because we feel like David. And so every time in my life, I won these little victories. I thought of how could I awaken that little David every time an imposter Goliath threatened to kick me out and threatened my downfall. And so here are three simple stories, three simple ideas that have helped me connect the dots and move forward. I want to share them with you all. My first story is of a simple American man named Ronald Reed. Ronald Reed lived in the United States and worked for 25 years as a janitor and a gas station attendant. You would have never heard of Ronald Reed before 2014 because when he died in 2014, not many people outside his family and his town had ever heard of him. Yet in a few months, Ronald Reed was an American hero and a philanthropist. When he died, he had saved $8 million, out of which $6 million were donated to his local hospital and library. And to put that into context, 2.7 million Americans died in 2014, out of which only 4,000 had saved 8 million and above. Ronald Reed's life mission was to live a frugal life and to donate for healthcare and learning. That was his why. And so the power of a why is not limited to celebrities. It's available for everyone, for you, for me. We are our own Ronald Reeds. It is the power of a why that inspires all of us, that makes human beings who are scared of fires turn into parents who will willingly jump into one to save their child. It is the power of a why that encouraged David to fight Goliath despite his own risk of being killed. It is the power of a why that inspired Virat Kohli to go and play a cricket match for his state Delhi 6 hours after his father died. His why was his love for cricket and his desire to play for India. Great and small stories all start with a why. And Simon Sinek beautifully says this: the why is at the center of our golden circle, the center of our very being. It rests in that part of our brain called the limbic brain, which does not have words, cannot speak. And so our why is like a silent child, shy child sitting in a corner, requires lots and lots of patience to talk. We have to ask ourselves why many, many times before we can arrive at our core mission. Because our imposters are like class bullies, but our whys are very silent, sometimes very flexible as well. But when our conviction meets our why, it roars into action, and it makes simple human beings like you and me into freedom fighters, into sportsmen, into army men, into heroes, into celebrities, and helps us achieve the unthinkable. My second story, let me narrate it a bit in the words of the narrator himself. This is a famous person who said, for 10 to 12 years, I could not sleep before a game. I finally made peace with it and thought of it as a part of my performance. I found ways on how to manage my mind. And so I would pack my bags before the game. My brother taught me this. And I did this till my last game for India. I just want to stop and ask, any guesses who this person was? You would think that this is an ordinary cricketer, but these words are of Sachin Tendulkar, our little master blaster. 200 tests for India, 100 centuries, and yet faced performance anxiety till his last match. As human beings, we value intensity over consistency. We like big outcomes, we like big victories, We love it when Sachin Tendulkar raises his bat and hits a century and we say, wow. We love it when India wins the World Cup. We love people coming in Forbes 30 under 30, coming up on Economic Times. All of you are MBA grads. We'll want to do that someday, right? We love the story of the unicorn. We value outcomes, not processes. And yet Sachin Tendulkar showed up daily with a powerful ritual that helped him manage his fears, which was his net practices, his shadow batting, and his simple ritual before every match. Everything great and worthwhile is a constant act and a habit and a daily commitment to show up. The imposters in our head are not going to go magically away. They will require a lot of choices and a lot of rituals. For me, that ritual is journaling. As I came here this morning, I thought of all the reasons I shouldn't be here. So I journaled all the reasons why I should be here. It's right here. For some other people, it's music. For somebody else, it's meditation. Bill Trupin once told Ben Horowitz, a famous Silicon Valley venture capitalist, there are no silver bullets. It's going to need a lot of lead bullets. So if you show up consistently, the power of those lead bullets will surprise you. Those imposters will keep showing up. That's our monkey brain, right? Sometimes. But our brains will realize rituals and patterns. So the next time an imposter shows up in your class exam, in your campus interview like me, on this stage, your brain may freeze a bit. But when it recognizes, it will smile and tell your imposter, I got this. My third story is a very personal story centered around my life itself. I lost my dad to brain cancer at the age of 17, 20 days before I turned 18. In that 1 year, I was enrolled in an academic course that I had no interest in because I was juggling between hospitals. And so when my father passed away, I cried my heart out to my mother, asking her to enroll me in a paid engineering course. My mother paid through her nose for that course because she believed in me. And I failed my first year in engineering again. I'm sure, like a lot of you who are in this brilliant institution. I could not cope up with engineering first year, and the trauma of losing my dad was too much. I felt failing 2 years in India is quite a big deal, right? I felt I had betrayed my mom. My mom got a whiff of my state of mind, and she drove 8 hours to meet me because she thought I wouldn't take failure very easily. On campus, she went to meet my academic director, Dr. Asnare, who's a distinguished professor from the Indian Institute of Technology, a very strict academician. And so as we went up walking to meet Dr. Asnare, I expected a stern warning and admonishment. And so can you imagine my surprise when Dr. Asnare had soft eyes and with a very soft tone told my mother, Mrs. D'Souza, this boy has hunger. He has a desire in his eyes to succeed. And so if you withdraw him from this course today, it will be a big loss. Honestly, till today, I don't know the basis of the confidence of my principal in me. But as I vacated my cherished hostel dorm, making way for newer students, I had tears in my eyes and my mother asked me, do you want to do this course, will you do it? And I said yes. And my mother said, well, if you believe in yourself, I believe in you. And my mother was a simple homemaker who probably never knew the word resilience. I have never cried in my life as much as I cried on that 8-hour journey back home. That spurred me back. The belief that Dr. Asnare and my mother had in me became my why. I was willing to pay a price for it. And if you have a why, you will face any how and any what for it. My life changed after that. I went back to college. God and the universe has been kind enough to compound my efforts and bring me here today. The simple belief that my mother and my teacher had in me drives me even today. The little boy who felt like an imposter is here today only because of his champions. Imposters love loneliness. They love one-on-one conversations, but they flinch at the power of a tribe. So my third story is go find your tribe. Go find your Dr. Asnare, go find your Sachin Tendulkar's brother. And when you find them, find the right people who build you and stay away from people who feed your imposters. Coming back to my campus story, where someone told me I was not good enough for India, after I ran back to my room and after I called my mother, I called a dear friend, an executive coach in Bombay called Kanishka Sinha. And I told Kanishka what had happened. And Kanishka said, "So Savio, why did you come back to India?" And I went on, GDP, growth rates, India shining, blah, 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 all the nice answers in BS school. And Kanishka asked me again, "So Savio, why did you come back to India?" I sighed as realization dawned onto me and said, "To be with my champion mom in her last years." And Kanishka told me, "Go back the next day and with all the sincerity in your eyes, tell them that thing." I went back the next day, different interview, and did just that. And the rest is history. It has been 8 years since I came back to India. I have enjoyed my professional journey. And hopefully, instead of me, my imposter has left the country. When you have the right tribe uplifting you and the right people backing you, magic happens. For me, those right people were Dr. Asnari, my mother, and Kanishka. So go find your right tribe. And when you find one another, build each other with love, vulnerability, and kindness. As Homo sapiens, our ancestors were able to anticipate danger far before they occurred. That was their mechanism for evolution. As time went by, our brain continued those habits, and maybe that is where imposters came from. However, our ancestors had three things. Their mission was one of survival. They showed up daily and innovated with small rituals. And they believed in the power of a tribe. Three simple universal truths and ideas that have traveled through time, centuries, cultures, and geographies. If we apply these three simple time-tested fundamentals in our lives and make it a prerogative to light our own torch and that of others, then we will be telling our imposters, "I am here to stay. You should pack your bags and go back and leave. There is no place in this world for you." So today, find your mission, show up consistently, and build this world with love and kindness. Thank you.